Part 41. Fantasy, me. Create a secret building at the beginning. Author, Mavericks Flying. Chapter 401. Come out of Tianji Tower. Fang Han raised his feet and walked towards the outside of the city. Little Lord. Ant Lan caught up and said, "Are we staying in Dawang City for a while? I feel that Emperor Yama of Fuiyun Mountain may not be far away. He is most likely waiting outside the city, waiting for us to step out of the deserted city." "Don't worry, Ant Lan, he didn't find any trace of us when he came. How could he notice when we left?" Fang Han said confidently. "However, this kind of life-saving thing has a limited number of times. If it is used so casually, I am afraid that it will be damaged in the future." Ant Lan was a little worried. The jade pendant in her hand is the same as the one in Fang Han's hand. It was given to them by Fang Han 100,000 years later. It can only be used 3 times. After that, it will be discarded. If this trip is successful, it's just a jade pendant. We can come to Tianji Tower again, and we can get it in our hands no matter how many opportunities there are. Even my father can be resurrected and come back." Fang Han raised his head, looked in the direction of the earthly immortal world, and said in a deep voice, "This line?" Ant Lan frowned and was shocked. "Young master, are you going back to the immortal world? Fuiyun Mountain is in the earthly immortal realm. It is the base camp of Fuiyun Mountain. I and others worked hard and managed to escape from the earthly immortal realm. How could the young master suddenly think of going back? Do you want to deal with Fuiyun Mountain? You know, Fuiyun Mountain is a behemoth with a long history. In terms of its history, it is much older than the Fang clan. Don't you think that the young master can easily defeat Fuiyun with an ancient lamp in his hand? Mountain, right? This is too childish. There is not even a great emperor on my side. If they can't move Fuiyun Mountain, then the two of them will be completely in trouble. Yes, we are going back to the immortal realm, and we are heading to Fuiyun Mountain," Fang Han said in a deep voice. "No, young master." Ant Lan was shocked and quickly persuaded, "The strength of you and me in front of Fuiyun Mountain is just an egg hitting a stone. Even if there is an additional secret treasure, its limitations are too great. If the other party discovers our presence first, we will be unable to escape." Having said that, the Tianyuan realm is extremely far away from the earthly immortal realm, and there is also a Zixuan realm in between. If we want to cross there in a short time, it is nothing more than a dream. It would be better to practice in the Tianyuan world first, and then approach the earthly immortal world. Ant Lan has a good plan in mind. As long as she stays in Tianyuan world and Zixuan world for a while, it doesn't need to be too long, just about 1,000 years. After all, Fang Han's talent is not bad. In 1,000 years, he may not be able to become a saint king. Or a great saint, but becoming a saint should be no problem. After all, he is 6th on the list of geniuses of all races. As long as Fang Han becomes a saint, he will have a little power to protect himself. At that time, it may be much safer to go to the immortal world. Who says we can't cross the purple mystic realm in a short time? Fang Han smiled confidently and continued, "If we can ask a great emperor to take action, it won't take too long to go to the earthly immortal realm." Ant Lan was shocked, then she frowned and said softly, "Young master, don't joke. How can there be an emperor willing to help us at this time? It would be fine if they offended other forces. But it is Fuiyun Mountain. As long as you pay a little attention to the war in Zixuan realm, you can understand how powerful Fuiyun Mountain is. You must know the immortal soldiers in the hands of Emperor Bai Li now. But it was left behind by the ancestors of Fuiyun Mountain back then. Although this incident made the surface of Fuiyun Mountain dull, it also reflected the background of Fuiyun Mountain. The ancestors had true immortals, and even in decline, they were still too thin. Bigger than a horse. It is not something that ordinary forces can provoke. In addition, the Fang clan has just been destroyed in Fuiyun Mountain. As a result, the strength that is willing to offend them becomes increasingly rare. Could it be that Ant Lan has forgotten Emperor Juyu of the Tianyuan realm? Fang Han said quietly. Emperor Juyu. Ant Lan was startled. Naturally, she would never forget this character. At the beginning of their crossover, the Juyu Emperor was the first to meet him, but he was involuntarily taken to the Tianji Tower by the other party. It can be said that, Meng Qingzi left a great impression on them. Young master, this person is not a kind person. He has a very bad reputation in the Tianyuan world. If we cooperate with him, it is tantamount to seeking the skin of a tiger. The other party is also a great emperor. If he has evil intentions, we may be in danger. Ant Lan said in a deep voice. What Meng Qingzi has done is no longer a secret in the Tianyuan world. This person can be said to be extremely brave. When he was a quasi-emperor, he dared to sneak into a holy place and destroy other people's inheritance. In order to become an emperor, he even dared to go deep into the tiger's den. Became emperor in the Zixuan realm. As for becoming emperor, he became even more lawless. He actually set up a killing array outside the true immortal inheritance and killed many emperors at once. In this way, Meng Qingzi can be said to have become famous. It's just that this reputation is a bit unpleasant. People who are also emperors are very scornful of Meng Qingzi, and are even ashamed to associate with him, because he is so out of character. Other emperors are hard-faced, and they are confident that I invincible, but Meng Qingzi did the opposite. He always set up a large formation before taking action to trick others. This approach is simply unique. It seems that no other emperor like this can be found in all ages. That's why we want to work with him. Fang Han said in a deep voice. If it were another great emperor, he would definitely weigh whether it is worth it. After all, if you help Fang Han, you will provoke a powerful enemy, and if you don't do it, you will be implicated. But Meng Qingzi, the difference is that he only cares about profit, and he will not let go of things that are profitable to him. As for provoking powerful enemies. As of now, does Meng Qingzi have many enemies? You know, among the emperors he tricked, there is another person who is a clone of the immortal lord, which Meng Qingzi doesn't know about. If he knew the truth, he would probably be restless by now. Little lord, must we do this? Ant Lan asked softly. In her opinion, this approach is too risky. Meng Qingzi is simply unreliable. At the critical moment, the chance of leaving the two of them to escape is more than 90%. I've made up my mind. Fang Han was resolute. The enemies of the Fang clan are not just Fuiyun Mountain. In addition to this, there are also forces such as the reclusive Immortal Palace, and none of them are weak. If they cannot defeat Fuiyun Mountain first, then they will. It is not just one force in Fuiyun Mountain that he has to face. If multiple parties join forces, I am afraid that he will have no other way except hiding in Dawang City. Fantasy, me. Create a secret building at the beginning. Author, Mavericks Flying. Chapter 402. All right. Ant Lan nodded helplessly. She knew many things about herself, and she couldn't persuade Fang Han at all. Before she spoke, she was thinking of a bit of luck. What if her young master changed his mind? But at present, it seems that other matters decided by Fang Han, it is difficult for a person to change his will. Young master, the Nine Nether Demon sect was originally located in the Beiduan Mountains, but now that Meng Qingzi, the ancestor of the Nine Nether Demon sect, has become emperor, their mountain gate has been moved to another location. It is at least tens of millions of miles from Dawang City to Juyu Demon sect, with several large states separated in between. We must set off as soon as possible. Ant Lan said. That's hard work for Ant Lan. Fang Han nodded and said. This is what I should do. Ant Lan smiled slightly, turned her palm over, and a jade pendant appeared in her palm. After activating it, a blue brilliance sheltered the two of them. Then, she grabbed Fang Han with her other hand, stepped out, and the figure they disappeared in an instant. When they reappeared, they had already arrived outside the Wang city. The next second, the two of them turned into a stream of light, broke through the sky, and rushed towards the direction of the Nine Nether Demon section very far away. Emperor Yan Mo stands in the void, with black hair shawl, majestic appearance, hands on his back, eyes open and closed, cold light bursting out, standing there like an immortal monument, no one can cross it. For Fang Han, who came out of the desert city, he just glanced at the two people casually and stopped paying attention. In his opinion, those two people had very weak auras, and they were obviously not Fang Han and the old servant. Little beast, I want to see how long you can stay in the Wang city without the resources to practice. The great Emperor Yan Mo spoke, his voice was cold and chilling, with a hint of calmness in it. He is a great emperor with a long life. There is a lot of time to waste with Fang Han. On the contrary, although Fang Han is young, he has great strength. It's too low. If it really needs to be consumed, it may not be able to consume more energy than his great emperor. At the same time, when Fang Han and the two rushed to Juyu demon sect, within Tianyuan realm, a lot of things happened. The most worrying thing is that in just 10 days, many forces in the Tianyuan world were suddenly wiped out overnight. This kind of thing is weird. It's confusing. It would be fine if it were just one or two, but in the past 10 days, more than 20 small and medium-sized forces have been destroyed, although these forces are not strong. But taken together, it can be compared to a holy land. When this news came out, many holy places in the Tianyuan world sent people to inquire about the news. After all, some of the destroyed forces were affiliated with certain holy places. Their affiliated forces have been wiped out, and they cannot ignore it. But as time passes, they didn't find out at all, which was very confusing and a bit too weird. It was as if these forces had been wiped out from the Tianyuan world. No traces left. For a while. There are many forces in the Tianyuan world, and everyone is in danger. After all, no one can be sure whether he will be destroyed next. Some people even suspected that this was a transcendent force in the Tianyuan world that was deliberately stirring up trouble behind the scenes. As for how the other party did it, it may be that the other party has mastered some special means, or it may be that he has been to Tianji Tower once. The storm is about to come and the wind is filling the building. In the Ye Imperial clan, Ye Changming stood in an attic. He was wearing a moon-white robe and a jade crown on his head. His face was solemn. His eyes were looking in the direction of the Tianji Tower. He sighed softly and said, "The Tianyuan world is not peaceful again. During this period, the Tianyuan world has experienced too much. First it was the invasion of the Blood Demon realm, then the Zixuan realm, and then the Burial Emperor. Every incident caused the Tianyuan realm to be in turmoil for a long time. Seeing that it had just calmed down. How long had it passed? Then someone jumped out again and started to stir up trouble. Is my father worried that some forces will be destroyed in the past few days?" Ye Chen frowned and said, "Yes." Ye Changming said quietly, "It would be fine if it were the past. After all, the Tianyuan world is not peaceful at all. The situation of attacking each other is unprecedented, but it appears this time, which is a bit unusual. After all, around the Tianyuan world, there are strong the enemy looks around. At this time, fighting in a nest is not wise no matter how you look at it. Could it be because of the demon clan?" Ye Chen asked in a deep voice. Many people had never seen the scene outside the Tianyuan realm before, but after so long, they have learned about the Zixuan realm and the earthly immortal realm. These two worlds have given countless people a great deal. The impact. Although there are thousands of races in Zixuan realm, there are no human races among them. This also makes the human race in Tianyuan realm refer to all the races in Zixuan realm as demon tribe. It can be said that Zixuan realm is a place ruled by demon tribes. World. The human race is insignificant in it. On the other hand, in the earthly immortal world, this is a world dominated by the human race. The demon race has no status in it and can only be used as mounts or food. In this way, the human race and demon race in the Tianyuan world, it is impossible to say that there is no evil intention. After all, any ethnic group wants to rule the world. Who is willing to share resources with other ethnic groups? Those who are not my ethnic group must have different intentions. This sentence is not only applicable, the same is true for the human race and the demon race. Because of this, there was a bit of turmoil in the Tianyuan world. Many people took the lead in targeting the demon race. Now only they have this energy. It can also make many holy places undetectable. No clues left. This is the latest news, take a look. Ye Changming glanced at Ye Chen, threw out a jade slip in his hand, and said meaningfully, "Oh." Ye Chen found the jade slip and penetrated it with his spiritual consciousness. After scanning the contents, he said in disbelief, 3 demon clans were exterminated. Good. Ye Changming nodded and said solemnly, this matter is not as simple as we thought. Could this be the demon clan's plan to kill people? Ye Chen asked. The number of monsters in the Tianyuan realm far exceeds that of the human race. Most of the territory is in the hands of the monsters. Compared to the human race, more than 20 forces were wiped out. The monsters were destroyed only after 3 ethnic groups. This is simply disproportionate. This possibility cannot be ruled out. Ye Changming raised one hand, patted Ye Chen's shoulder, and said sincerely, Chen today's Tianyuan world is no longer the former Tianyuan world. Now Tianyuan world is surrounded by powerful enemies. Currently there are Zixuan world and Earth Immortal world, but other powerful worlds may appear in the future. Your future achievements will not only surpass your father, but may even surpass your ancestors. So, you should take a longer-term view. Ye Chen is destined to be the helmsman of the Ye Imperial clan in the future. His pattern will also determine the future pattern of the Ye clan. If he only focuses on the Tianyuan world, then in the future, the Ye Imperial clan may not be able to escape the shackles of Tianyuan realm. The child remembers his father's teachings. Ye Chen bowed his hands and asked again, what my father said just now means that the turmoil in the Tianyuan world may have outside forces involved in it. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Fantasy, me. Create a secret building at the beginning. Author, Mavericks Flying. Chapter 403. It's hard to say. Ye Changming looked up at the void and said leisurely, if there is no best, if there is, I'm afraid the Tianyuan world will be in catastrophe. At this time, the Zixuan realm was attacked by the earthly immortal realm. Although a true immortal came out, the defense was still very reluctant. There was no leisure to provoke the Tianyuan realm. At this critical moment, anyone who can reach out to the Tianyuan realm, the forces are probably at least from the earthly immortal realm. Once confirmed, it is really the earthly immortal realm that is causing trouble behind the scenes. I'm afraid. The Tianyuan realm will also make the same mistake as the Zixuan realm. The lessons learned from the Zixuan realm are right before our eyes. How can the Tianyuan realm be the opponent of the earthly immortal realm? Ye Changming said worriedly. Father. Ye Chen took a step forward and said softly, since there are people who want to muddy the water in Tianyuan world, why don't we go to Tianji Tower and let the owner of Tianji Tower give some advice? When the owner of Tianji speaks, not only can we know who the person behind the scenes is, but we can also use this to protect the Ye Imperial clan. It can be said to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Why doesn't my father understand this matter? Ye Changming said with a wry smile. It is better not to know some things than to know them. More importantly, this matter is not profitable for the imperial clan. Even if they know the mastermind behind the scenes, what can they do? Destroy the other party? Since they dare to take action, why haven't they considered the possibility of Tianji Tower's intervention? Therefore, all forces in the Tianyuan world are waiting and watching for the time being. As for heading to Tianji Tower, it can be said that every force is ready. Once things change, they can let their subordinates enter the Tianji Tower immediately with one order. At this time, they are all waiting. If someone else goes in first, why should they spend the money if they can get nothing? It costs a lot of money to find out who is behind the scenes. The other side. Demon Palace. Two figures sat opposite each other. These two people were both dressed in golden robes. The only difference was that they were an old man and a middle-aged man. Each of these two people had extremely powerful auras. Like two mountains, suppressing the four extremes of the world, the blood in the body is like Wan Yang, flooding in all directions. Why did King Peng come to my demon palace today when he was free? The middle-aged man spoke. This man is the current patriarch of the Golden Crow clan. He has a very majestic bearing. Every move he makes exudes an inexplicable power, which seems to be able to pull all the ways of heaven and earth, making people intimidated. The old man opposite him is the leader of the Golden Winged Dapen clan. He has a very high seniority, one generation higher than the leader of the Golden Crow clan, but he has never stepped down from the position of leader. At present, his power has reached the middle stage of the Saint King. No matter where he is placed, he is an absolute giant. Didn't the Demon Palace get the news? Peng Wang spoke, his voice was like the clanging of gold and iron. As soon as the words came out, the whole hall was filled with a chilling feeling. It was very tyrannical. King Peng is referring to how many groups in the demon clan were destroyed by others. The middle-aged man said calmly. Good. Peng Wang nodded, his expression was not good-looking, because one of the three destroyed ethnic groups was still a descendant of the Golden Winged Dapak clan. It's just that the bloodline was a little farther away. Their Golden Winged Dapak clan has always been. There are only 5 or 6 Golden Winged rocks with weak bloodlines and pure blood. The reason why they can maintain the prestige of the Golden Winged rocks is that except for themselves, their bloodline is tyrannical, and every Golden Winged rock is the best. In addition to their peers, they also have to rely on these collateral tribes to help them. Now that one of them has been suddenly wiped out, it is impossible for the Golden Winged Dapen tribe not to be angry. Didn't King Peng find out the whole story? The middle-aged man said with a chuckle. If I had found out, I would not have come to the Demon Palace today. Peng Wang snorted coldly and said with a displeased expression. There was not much respect in his words. After all, the Golden Crow clan has long lived up to its ancient reputation. Although there was a great emperor during this period, the same goes for the Dragon clan. There is also one person, and there are even 2 or 3 people from the human race. If the Golden Crow clan wants to maintain their dominance, they must win over the tyrannical clans like the Golden Winged Dapen. If there is a falling out, the Golden Winged Dapen will fall to the Dragon clan. The Golden Crow clan will. The same clan is in danger. They are both demon clans, and they attack each other without mercy. After all, the Dragon clan has stayed in the sea for so long, and they must also try to rule the land. King Peng joked. The middle-aged man was calm. He chuckled and said the Golden Winged Dapen clan has not been able to find out. Naturally, it will be difficult for me, the Demon Palace, to find clues. Oh. Peng Wang looked at the middle-aged man for a moment, and found that the man's expression did not seem to be fake. He sighed helplessly. Isn't even the Demon Palace helpless? In this case, it seems that I am going to visit the Tianji Tower myself. Although I really don't want to spend resources, the face of the Golden Winged Dapen family still needs to be maintained. Therefore, even if there is heavy bleeding, the mastermind behind the scenes must be found out. With that said, King Peng stood up and was about to leave. King Peng stayed behind. The middle-aged man called softly. "What else?" Peng Wang asked. Although the Demon Palace has not been able to find out the truth of the matter, it is not difficult to guess that the mastermind behind the scenes is nothing more than the Dragon Clan, the Human Clan, the Forbidden City Emperor, and the Zixuan Earth Immortal Realm. When King Peng heard this, he originally wanted to leave, but he suppressed it. What's the meaning? The meaning is very simple. Only these behemoths have the ability to do these things without being noticed. The middle-aged man said, if it's the first two, it's easy to say, but if it's the last two, things will be tricky, and there will probably be a bloody storm. Needless to say, the overall strength of the human race, coupled with the newly born three emperors Ling Xiao, Meng Qingzi, and the ancestor of the Ye family, can be said to have taken a big step forward. As for the Dragon Clan, with Ao Xian in charge, within a million years, it's not a problem to fight against the Golden Crow clan. The reason why I say it, these two are easier to say, is because of this incident. Confined to the Tianyuan world. No one from the outside gets involved. But if it's the Forbidden City Emperor, that's going to be troublesome. As the world level increases, the Emperor is no longer the limit, and the thoughts of some emperors in restricted areas have begun to come alive. They want to take a step forward, but they need massive resources. What resources can you get if you are stuck in a restricted area every day? Only by following the old path and controlling one force can they achieve their wish. If the Forbidden Emperors leave one after another, I am afraid that all the forces in the Tianyuan world will be affected. If the situation is a little worse, the entire Tianyuan world may have to be reshuffled. As for the final Earth Immortal Realm, that is the last thing they want to face. Just look at the fate of the Zixuan realm. The whole world has been crippled. What benefits can they gain from facing each other in the Tianyuan world? Maybe the fate of Tianyuan realm is even more miserable than that of Zixuan realm. Fantasy, me. Create a secret building at the beginning. Author, Mavericks Flying. Chapter 404. In your opinion, which side has the greatest possibility? Peng Wang's eyes were like lightning and he said in a deep voice. Earthly Immortal Realm. The middle-aged man slowly spit out 3 words. These 3 words were like a thunderous explosion, roaring throughout the hall. King Peng suddenly changed his color when he heard it. Even though he had been in a high position for a long time, his heart had already been calm. At first glance, he heard, even with this name, I can't keep calm. The pressure from the earthly immortal realm is really too great, almost making me breathless. If the earthly immortal realm wants to attack the Tianyuan realm, they won't be able to resist it. After all, the Zixuan realm is therefore, the situation can be stabilized because they have one more true immortal, but what about their Tianyuan world? They don't even have a figure on the gods list to use their head to resist other people's immortal world. It can be said that the current Tianyuan world, worse than the already destroyed Blood Demon realm, for no other reason than that they have at least one true immortal, but their Tianyuan realm does not have one. The weight of just one true immortal is almost greater than that of all the people in their Tianyuan realm put together. What's coming is more of a deterrent. Do you really mean what you say? Peng Wang frowned and asked. I'm not sure, but there's a 70% chance that one or several forces in the earthly immortal realm are manipulating everything behind the scenes. The middle-aged man said slowly. The possibility of 70% is already considered very high. The war between the Zixuan realm and the earthly immortal realm is not over yet. How could the forces from the earthly immortal realm extend their hands to the Tianyuan realm? Are you being too unfounded? Peng Wang thought for a moment and said softly, perhaps some emperors in restricted areas cannot bear the loneliness and want to set foot in the world again. I hope so too, but in fact, the Zixuan realm is no match for the earthly immortal realm. The middle-aged man shook his head. Judging from the current situation, there is only one true immortal in the Zixuan realm, while there are no less than 4 exposed true immortals in the Earth immortal realm alone. The two are totally different. This. King Pen was silent. He also knew this. In recent years, most of the creatures who have entered the Tianji Tower are people from the Zixuan realm. They all enter the Tianji Tower to buy some opportunities. The purpose is to resist the earthly immortal world. After all, others have already fought, and I have some natural resources that I can't quickly turn into strength, instead of giving others an advantage. It's better to use them all by yourself to enhance your strength and be able to better fight against the earthly immortal world. But even so, the Zixuan realm is still no match for the earthly immortal realm. Based on this alone, it can be seen that in the battle between the two realms, the earth immortal realm is completely suppressing the Zixuan realm to fight again. If they still have the strength to spare, they can cross the border to conquer the Tianyuan realm. This is too scary. Don't forget that no one from the Yugzu Palace and other forces in the earthly immortal realm has appeared on the battlefield between the two realms. They will not fail to see the great benefits of the Zixuan realm. Since they don't take action, it proves that they are planning a bigger conspiracy. The middle-aged man said solemnly. Are you saying that the target of Yugzu Palace and other forces is not the Zixuan realm, but the Tianyuan realm? Pen Wang frowned. They already knew the reputation of Yugzu Palace before the two worlds merged. Being able to cultivate a disciple like Yang Jian is enough to prove the foundation of Yugzu Palace. In addition, if a true immortal sits in charge, if with the arrival of Yugzu Palace, Tianyuan world may really be gone. The probability is high. The middle-aged man sighed softly and said, if you want to know the detailed information, you have to go to the Tianji Tower, but this matter involves a war between two realms, and may even lead to the end of a true immortal. The value of this kind of information is. He did not continue, but King Peng already understood. When it comes to true immortals, it is estimated that based on the background of the Golden Crow clan, even if you buy it, your vitality will be severely damaged. And after buying the news, what can you do? Relying on foresight to ambush Yugzu Palace? Joke. There are real immortals, but if a group of ants ambushes a real dragon, isn't that going to die? It seems that we need to talk with the human race, dragon race, and other forces in the Tianyuan world. Pen Wang spoke. It is a bit unrealistic to rely on one force alone to figure out the trends in the earthly immortal world. Only by joining forces and going to the Tianji Tower once can we get the complete news. As for what to do after getting the news, just it depends on how much effort the earthly immortal realm has put into it. They still have to deal with the Zixuan realm, which is definitely impossible. Everyone rushes to the Tianyuan realm. If there was a true immortal in my Tianyuan world. The middle-aged man whispered. As he spoke, he laughed at himself. This matter was a bit unrealistic. He had not even stepped onto the emperor's list. As for becoming an immortal, it was too far away. If someone really has the qualifications to become an immortal. It is estimated that the moment Emperor Bai Li and Emperor Ming became immortals, they had already rushed to Tianji Tower. Now, at this time, there is still no great emperor in the Tianyuan world who has become an immortal. I am afraid that no one has the qualifications to become an immortal. True immortal, well. Pen Wang sighed softly. There has been no big move in the earthly immortal realm, but just the word true immortal has almost made them breathless. If a true immortal really comes one day. He dare not imagine the scene. The other side. 9 Nether Demon Sect. Since Mengqingzi became emperor, Juyu Demon Sect has been expanded countless times. The mountain gate is towering, the palaces are continuous, covering thousands of miles, and the momentum has reached the extreme. The sacred peaks are towering, the clouds are steaming and the clouds are bright, and the atmosphere is myriad. Among them, the ancient trees are vigorous, the Ganoderma lucidum is everywhere, and the cranes are soaring. No matter how you look at it, it looks like a fairyland outside the world. There is no hint of the aura of a demonic leader at all. Sect Master, it can be said that our demon sect has become very famous during this time. Many forces have surrendered one after another. Even the one who a Holy Land, hundreds of millions of miles away, plans to send a supreme elder to visit us in a while. Huan Quan, the former headmaster of the Nine Nether Demon sect, followed Yang Qiu, and spoke in an unhurried voice. As soon as he finished speaking, a greeting card appeared in his hand, and he sent it to Yang Qiu and said, "Master, this is a greeting from the Holy Land of all transformations. Holy Land of all changes." Yang Qiu came to a cliff with grace and dignity, stood with his hands behind his hands, his clothes were flying in the mountain wind, his eyes were deep and confident, and he said lightly, "I remember that the sect has always regarded itself as righteous, but now it is sending greetings to our Juyu demon section. It is simply ridiculous. Please help me get back here. After all, I am very busy. As the leader of the Nine Nether Demon sect, the sect has many things. Every day I see the holy masters and leaders of each sect, and there are not even 100 but also 80. His holy land of all transformations is still a little behind. The implication is obvious. The one who a holy land wants to see him, but he is not qualified yet." "Yes." Huan Quan glanced at Yang Qiu's back with envy. "This position was originally his. It's a pity. He didn't die as a disciple, and he didn't take the lead in entering Tianji Tower, so Yang Qiu took all the benefits. Otherwise, he should be the one to lead the Nine Nether Demon sect to glory. It's better now. It's fine that he didn't get anything. He has lost his position as headmaster. It seems that he won't be able to get it back for a while. Fantasy, me. Create a secret building at the beginning." Author, Mavericks Flying. Chapter 405. After Huan Quan left. Soon. He flew back in a hurry again. "What happened?" Yang Qiu frowned. "This junior brother of mine used to be the headmaster of the Nine Nether Demon section. Apart from other things, the city government and Dingli are absolutely passable. If nothing happens, he usually won't be like this." "Master, something happened." Huan Quan came to Yang Qiu again, and a greeting card for the One Who a Holy Land appeared on his palm, and quickly said, "One Who a Holy Land, destroyed." "What?" Yang Qiu was startled and couldn't believe it. The Holy Land that he had given him a greeting invitation just now was gone in the blink of an eye. At any rate, the One Who a Holy Land is also a holy land. It's not a cat or a dog. Why? Will it be destroyed silently? Yang Qiu immediately thought of Tianji Tower. Could it be that someone entered Tianji Tower, copied his previous method, and obtained the Holy Land of 10,000 transformations from the senior owner of Tianji Tower? How to break the mountain protecting formation? Only in this way can the Holy Land of all transformations be destroyed instantly. Otherwise, if someone attacks a Holy Land, they must first pass the formation level. This formation alone cannot be broken in a short time. Yes, with this time, all the major forces in the Tianyuan world have already received the news. When did this happen? Have you ever found out who did it? Yang Qiu asked quickly. Just half an hour ago, I just got the news. As for who did it, I don't know. I only know that a palm fell from the sky and wiped out the Holy Land of all transformations in one fell swoop. Huan Quan had a sad look on his face. He had been a leader. He soon smelled something unusual from this incident. It is estimated that the destruction of the One Who a Holy Land was not as simple as it appeared. It was a holy land, but inside there were many saints, including saint kings and great saints. However, there was no resistance at all, and they were all wiped out in an instant. And the person who did it had not yet used imperial weapons. It was very likely that he was a peak quasi-emperor, or even Udadi's people are doing something secretly. Breakthrough from the outside. Yang Qiu raised his hand to stroke his beard, and narrowed his eyes slightly. Years of experience told him that he might have guessed wrong just now. This person has never been to Tianji Tower. He relied on his strength to destroy the Holy Land of all transformations. If I remember correctly, many forces have been quietly destroyed some time ago. Yang Qiu said softly. The headmaster is right. Some time ago, many forces in the human race disappeared overnight. Recently, 3 groups of the demon race were destroyed. To this day, even the Holy Land of all transformations has been wiped out. Huan Quan frowned, with deep worry in his tone, as if there was an invisible big hand covering the entire Tianyuan world. The breath was so suppressed that it made people breathless. Even if he is in the 9 Nether Demon sect, there is not much sense of security. After all, the 10,000 transformations Holy Land is not weak. Although no great emperor has been born, years of accumulation of foundation have put it at the forefront of all holy places. The only thing that is despicable is that the 10,000 transformations Holy Land is like they were just living on the wall. The righteous path and the demonic path were stronger, so they fell to that side. Now, with the 9 Nether Demon sect at its peak, they moved closer as soon as they left, not caring at all about the reputation of their 10,000 transformations Holy Land. From the more than 20 small and medium-sized forces of the human race, to the 3 groups of the demon race, and now the Holy Land of 10,000 transformations, it seems that this is a premeditated action. A gleam of light flashed in Yang Qiu's eyes, cutting through the void, which was extremely cold, and he murmured. That's interesting. Senior brother, did you discover something? Huan Quan asked aloud. I didn't find anything, but the destruction of these forces gave me a feeling. Yang Qiu put his hands behind his back and spoke calmly. What does it feel like? Huan Quan asked. The person behind the scenes seems to be testing something. From weak to strong, one force is destroyed one by one. It seems that he is afraid. He obviously has stronger strength, but he chooses to attack the weak force first. Yang Qiu looked into the void and murmured, what on earth are they testing? Could it be some old monster from the restricted area who wants to come back to the world? Huan Quan considered. Before, the Emperor of Tianyuan realm had returned and had conflicts with many forces. But now both sides are more restrained and have not yet fought. Won't Yang Qiu shook his head and said in a deep voice, when the old monsters in the restricted area come out, they will only dominate one side, rather than destroy these forces. After all, doing so is not in line with their interests. How can they rule when everyone is destroyed? They have no subordinates, so they are not just commanders. In this way, there seems to be no difference between the outside world and the restricted area. Having said that, when those old monsters come forward, they don't need to test anything, they can just use some holy places to operate. On the contrary, this kind of slow testing makes people a little confused. Yang Qiu pondered for a long time, but couldn't come up with any clues. He turned around and ordered, excuse me, junior brother, I'll go to Tianji Tower in person. After you go to Tianji building, you only need to ask the senior building owner whether our Juyu demon sect will be in danger in the future. Yang Qiu's meaning is very obvious. He has no control over what happens to others. As long as the mastermind behind the scenes does not take action against the 9 Nether Demon sect. After all, judging from the current situation, the opponent's strength is very terrifying and can destroy the Holy Land of 10,000 transformations in one blow. It is very likely that the opponent is still retaining his strength. If it breaks out, he will not be surprised at all if the opponent is a great emperor. Yes. Huan Quan cupped his hands and was about to turn around and leave. In the distance, a stream of light flew over and landed not far in front of the two of them. The disciple paid homage to the master and met Elder Huang. A disciple of the Nine Nether Demon sect dressed in black raised his hands and said, "What's the matter?" Huang Quan asked. Reporting back to the elder, there was a man outside the mountain gate who called himself Fang Han and asked to see him. "Want to see?" The disciple looked very embarrassed, and his voice became lower and lower at the end, until it was almost inaudible. "Who do you want to see?" Huang Quan frowned and shouted. The name Fang Han, for some reason, made him feel familiar, but for a while, he couldn't remember where he had heard it. "He said he wanted to meet Ancestor," the disciple said weakly. "Ancestor?" Yang Qi raised his eyebrows. He was very happy. What kind of person is his ancestor? Great Emperor. How many great emperors are there in the entire Tianyuan world? I don't know how many are secretly, but on the surface, there are no more great emperors than one hand. There was also a person named Fang Han. How could such a nameless person be worthy of seeing him? Immediately, he sneered and asked someone to drive Fang Han away. But then, Fang Han? Yang Qi was stunned, as if he thought of something, and he quickly asked, "But Fang Han, who is sixth on the list of geniuses in all worlds?" You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Fantasy, me. Create a secret building at the beginning. Author, Mavericks Flying. Chapter 407. Earthly Immortal Realm. Floating Cloud Mountain. On a sacred peak, the main hall stands, with several figures standing opposite each other. "Mountain Master, there is news." An elder flew quickly from outside the hall. Before he entered the hall, he shouted loudly. "Oh!" Fuiyun Mountain Master's eyes suddenly opened, blooming with a dazzling brilliance. He asked in a deep voice, "But has Fang Han's whereabouts been found?" "Nothing can be hidden from the mountain owner." The elder flattered him lightly and complimented. "Just now, news came from Emperor Yan Mo. He said that he saw Fang Han in Dawang City. At this time, Emperor Yan Mo is guarding Dawang City, waiting for Fang Han to come out. After all, Fang Han is a young man and can hold it for a while, but he will never be able to hold it for a lifetime. Within 100 years, Fang Han will definitely fall into my hands at Fuiyun Mountain." "Good." The master of Fuiyun Mountain clapped his hands and laughed loudly, saying loudly, as expected of the Emperor Yan Mo, "and more worthy of being the pillar of the sky of my Fuiyun Mountain." As soon as he took action, he found the whereabouts of Fang Han. "Mountain Master, all these are the instructions of Master Tianji," the elder said softly. "Since the Master of Tianji is willing to point us to Fuiyun Mountain, he probably won't hinder me from Fuiyun Mountain setting foot in Tianyuan realm." Master Fuiyun Mountain said with a smile. "Good." The elder cupped his hands and said with a smile, "Several affiliated forces sent by us from Fuiyun Mountain secretly took action several times in the Tianyuan world. As a result, the senior master of Tianji building turned a blind eye to this. The strength of Master Tianji is unknown to hundreds of millions of living beings. The small tricks they do in Fuiyun Mountain in secret can be hidden from other people. But they can never be hidden from the eyes of Master Tianji. Since he doesn't hear about it, he can't hide it from others. Asking is equivalent to acquiescing to this matter. Mountain Master, our Fuiyun Mountain is almost ready to descend on the Tianyuan realm." Another elder stood up and said, "It's time." The master of Fuiyun Mountain stepped out of the hall, looked at the Tianyuan realm, and said, "Then let the two elders lead the team and carry 2 imperial soldiers and rush to the Tianyuan realm." "Yes." The 2 elders looked excited and bowed their hands together. Then, in the Fuiyun Mountain, the aura of the ancient emperor stirred, and 2 imperial weapons like the blazing sun rose into the sky. The brilliance filled the void and suppressed the void for hundreds of millions of miles. Boom! A deafening sound came out. The void began to wrinkle. Countless warships cut through the clouds, carrying an iron-blooded evil aura, flying out of Fuiyun Mountain. They were so dense that they could not be seen to the end. I don't know how many warships rushed towards the direction of Tianyuan realm. What happened? What happened? In the earthly immortal world, countless creatures, not knowing what was going on, all looked at Fuiyun Mountain for the first time. When they saw the endless warships, everyone showed a look of shock. The last time Fuiyun Mountain was like this: when there is a big commotion, we still have to go to war with the Fang clan. Today, there is another big war. Who are we going to attack? Is it the Zixuan realm? But now the Zixuan realm has a true immortal who is in charge, which can be said to be a strong backbone. Shanlian doesn't even have a true immortal, so he rashly starts a war with Zixuan realm. This is no less than sending someone to death. Is Fuinshan crazy? Emperor Bai Li of Zixuan realm has just become an immortal. At this time, they still dare to provoke Zixuan realm. Someone said in a deep voice. Maybe their target is not Zixuan realm. A supreme figure, standing in the void, looking towards the direction of Fuiyun Mountain, said with deep eyes. Could it be Tianyuan world? At this moment, many people reacted quickly. They already know about Tianyuan world, but many people have never been there and can't figure out the strength of Tianyuan world. They only know that Tianyuan world is similar to Zixuan world. It should be Tianyuan realm. It is said that there is not even a true immortal in Tianyuan realm, which is a whole level weaker than Zixuan realm. If it were not for the existence of Tianji building master, it is estimated that Zixuan realm alone can destroy Tianyuan without the help of our immortal realm. Boundary. When these words came out, it was like throwing a huge boulder on a calm lake, setting off huge waves. Many people never thought that Tianyuan realm was so weak. Boom. Another loud noise came. At the far end of the sky, a huge palm condensed and formed from the void, covering hundreds of millions of miles. The sun and the moon rotated between the palms, and there was an endless breath of chaos. This palm was so huge that no one can't help but feel insignificant. This is the direction of Yugzu Palace. A quasi-emperor said in horror. Yugzu Palace has a transcendent status in the earthly immortal world. Although there are few disciples in the sect, if you pull one out at random, you will at least have the cultivation of a saint. In such a sect, due to the small number of people, therefore, they are extremely protective of their shortcomings, and most people are not willing to provoke them at all. Before, when the two realms merged, the Earth Immortal Realm and the Zixuan Realm fought fiercely, but a few forces such as Yugzu Palace sat firmly on the Diaotai without any disciples showing up. They thought that Yugzu Palace looked down upon Zixuanja at all. Now, with the appearance of such a palm, many people understood in an instant that it was not that Yugzu Palace did not take action, but that their target was not Zixuanja from the beginning. Bang! With the palm of his hand, the sky and the earth exploded. In the entire earthly immortal world, sand and rocks were flying, and strong winds were blowing. Everything was in chaos, as if time had flown back, making countless people lose their sight. The power of this palm directly shook the sky. It was blown open, creating a huge hole. Several figures walked out of it, each of them was a great emperor. They had a majestic figure, suppressing the heavens, looking down on all the worlds, walking into the chaos, and then disappeared. 3 great emperors. Some people saw the scene and were shocked beyond words. Just at the beginning, Yugzu Palace sent 3 great emperors. This is not a big deal. You must know that when they attack Zixuan realm, they Yugzu even the palace has not put so much effort into it. With Tianyuan world, a world that does not even have true immortals, how can it resist it? I'm afraid. Without the help of true immortals, the 3 great emperors of Yugzu Palace can directly overwhelm them. After all, not only are there no true immortals in the Tianyuan world, there are not even people who are on the god list. And on their side, any great emperor can go to the Tianyuan world and fight 1 against 2, or even deal with more, without any problem. The Tianyuan realm is not as good as the Zixuan realm, but it is treated so seriously by our immortal realm. Even if the world is destroyed, they are proud enough. A great emperor stood in the void and murmured, with a hint of disdain in his voice. In his opinion, Tianyuan world is nothing more than this. With the existence of Tianji Tower, it is not as good as Zixuan world in terms of foundation. What can we use to fight against it? Their earthly immortal realm. If the Tianji Tower appears in the earthly immortal realm, it would be unceremonious to say that their earthly immortal realm has embarked on the road of conquering all realms. Why do they have to huddle in one place like the Tianyuan realm? Fantasy, me. Create a secret building at the beginning. Author, Mavericks Flying. Chapter 408. Boom. Almost at the same time. Tianyuan realm. The sky cracked. Like a broken mirror, the sky was covered with dense cracks. Behind each crack, a terrifying aura escaped. It made hundreds of millions of creatures tremble. It seemed that there is some great terror that is approaching quickly. It seems that something will jump out at the next moment, which gives people a very bad feeling. Once born, the entire Tianyuan world will be ended. Billions of living beings will bleed and die. Boom. Thunder suddenly started, and heavy rain poured down. The entire Tianyuan world was shrouded in the rain curtain, and the hearts of all the creatures sank to the bottom at this moment, even if they didn't know what happened. But looking at the cracked sky, you can guess with your toes that this is not a good thing. Are you coming? In countless holy places. I don't know how many supreme figures are looking up at the sky, their expressions are extremely solemn. They have just received some news here, and they haven't figured out the clue yet. The other party has actually started to take action. Came so fast. The Ye Imperial clan, the Golden Crow clan, the Dragon clan and other forces all uttered a soft murmur, and then a figure walked out and came to the sky. They stood in front of the crack and looked into the depths. What they saw was endless and distant. In the depths of the chaos, there is boundless blood and energy, Wang Yang, sweeping in, the waves are turbulent, and the waves are so heavy that you can't see the edge at a glance. There are countless soldiers, many of whom are emperors. Each one of them is full of energy and blood. When a wisp of breath escapes from the oven, the squeezing sky is distorted, which makes people feel frightened. It is hard to imagine what it would be like if so many elites descended on the Tianyuan world. Sure enough, the earthly immortal realm is behind the scenes. Ao Xian was wearing a robe, with a huge dragon head on his head, his dark golden eyes opened and closed, and his voice was very solemn. The earth immortal realm is very ambitious, and just one Zixuan realm cannot satisfy their appetite. Now that the earth immortal realm has begun to cross borders, do you have any good ideas? This is an emperor in the restricted area. He just set foot in the world some time ago. He didn't expect that not long after leaving the restricted area, he would encounter such a catastrophe. Since he was in the Tianyuan world, he couldn't avoid it even if he wanted to. A disaster. Any strategy is nothing but illusion in the face of absolute strength. The ancestor of the Golden Crow clan shook his head slightly and sighed. The reason why the Zixuan realm was able to block the earthly immortal realm was not because of any strategy, but because a true immortal came out. If we want to follow the example of Zixuanja, only a true immortal can stabilize the situation. True immortal. Ao Xian pouted and said depressedly, if you give me another 1,000,000 years, becoming an immortal will just happen naturally. Snort. Millions of years. Are the people in your local fairy world all fools? In 1,000,000 years, I don't know how many true immortals will be born in the Zixuan realm alone. The Forbidden City Emperor who just spoke said angrily. If it really doesn't work, we might try to go to Zixuan realm to ask for help. If Emperor Bai Li of Zixuan realm comes forward, there may be some improvement. The ancestor of the golden crow said softly. As the saying goes, the enemy of the enemy is a friend. Previously, the Earth Immortal Realm had taken action against the Zixuan realm, which caused great trauma. Now the Tianyuan realm is facing the threat of the Earth Immortal Realm again. If Emperor Bai Li is willing to take action at this time, if you help me, you will definitely remember this kindness when the Tianyuan world grows up. When the two worlds form an alliance in the future, the immortal world may not be the opponent of the two worlds. Emperor Bai Li. Just a demon clan. What's the use of begging him? At this time, another ancient emperor walked out of the restricted area, with a hint of disdain in his voice, and said coldly, "It is true that the Earth Immortal Realm is powerful, but it still belongs to the human race. When they come to the Tianyuan realm, they are not the same. A good thing." When many people heard these words, their eyes froze and they turned their heads to look over. They didn't expect that at this critical moment, there were still people who wanted to go to the immortal world. Fellow Taoists, please don't misunderstand yourself. The creatures in the earthly and immortal world do not call themselves human beings, but call themselves immortals. The voice of the ancestor of Jinwu fell. The implication is that if you treat others as one of their own, they may not treat you as one of their own. Tianyuan world is different from Zixuan world. There are thousands of races in Zixuan world, but at least they are relatively united. But the Tianyuan world is different. The demon clan and the human clan have deep grievances. These two huge ethnic groups have been fighting against each other. It can be traced back to the ancient times. Even if the enemy is now, there is still no way to let go of the grudge in your heart. So what? Although the names of the ethnic groups are different, in the final analysis they still have the same origin. From my point of view, if the earthly immortal realm comes to the Tianyuan realm, it may not be a bad thing. If all fellow Taoists want to overestimate their own capabilities and try to resist the earthly immortal realm, please forgive me for not accompanying you and say goodbye. After saying that, the great emperor turned and left. Seeing this scene, the ancestor of the Ye family raised the halberd in his hand, and a cold and murderous aura rose into the sky, turning into a stormy wave that swept across all directions. If you don't like nonsense, you have to take action when you come up. Fellow Daoist, don't be impulsive. The ancestor of the Lin family took a step forward, stood in front of the ancestor of the Ye family, and spoke to dissuade him. The earthly immortal realm has not crossed over yet, so we must not be the first to take action. Besides, the world is so big and full of wonders. There are not a few people who choose to protect themselves wisely. He wants to betray the Tianyuan world. The ancestor of the Ye family spoke, and his voice was like the sound of gold and iron, which chilled the heart. In all the worlds, are there still few humans? There is no world without some humans. As for the world where humans dominate, there are no longer a few. He rashly treats people from other worlds as one of his own. Unless his head is kicked by a donkey. In the Tianyuan world, there are still good and bad in the human race, let alone all the heavens and worlds. Let him be. The ancestor of the Golden Crow also spoke at this moment. The two great emperors appeared to stop him. The ancestor of the Ye family temporarily suppressed the anger in his heart, but the halberd in his hand still did not put away, exuding a heart-stopping killing intent from time to time. Speaking of which, where is fellow Daoist Zhuyu? Ao Xian looked around and didn't see Meng Qingzi, which made him feel confused. Logically speaking, Meng Qingzi's presence is definitely the benefit. Meng Qingzi didn't appear here today. No matter how he looked, he couldn't see it. It's a bit weird. If he were here, if nothing else, he would first set up a few killing arrays to keep people below the great emperor of the earthly immortal realm safe and sound. Never seen it? The ancestor of Jinwu shook his head slightly. Ao Xian narrowed his eyes and glanced at the other end of the space crack. Although he didn't find Meng Qingzi, his intuition told him that Menqingzi was definitely not idle at this time. Fantasy, me. Create a secret building at the beginning. Author, Mavericks Flying. Chapter 409. 9 Nether Demon Sect. In the headmaster's hall. Yang Qiu walked around with his hands behind his back, his face full of sadness. His ancestor had just left with Fang Han, less than 2 or 3 hours later. The sky split open. Although he didn't know what happened, he could roughly guess it. There is definitely an unknown terror coming. At this time, the Juyu demon sect does not have Menqingzi as its commander. It relies on 2 great saints and several saint kings. In the face of the unknown terror, it is like duckweed in the sea, swaying in the wind and rain, and may overturn at any time. Ancestor is so confused, how could he be persuaded by Fang Han with just a few words? Yang Qiu murmured. Fang Han and his ancestor didn't know what they were plotting. As soon as the 2 sides joined forces, they disappeared immediately. In 3 hours, at the speed of an emperor. They probably all flew out now. More than half of the Tianyuan world. The ancestor is gone and another change has occurred in the Tianyuan world. Where should our Juyu demon sect go? Yang Qiu stood still and glanced into the distance. He gritted his teeth and said in a deep voice. It seems that I have to go to Tianji Tower in person. Although, before that, he had asked Huan Quan to rush to the Tianji Tower, but Huan Quan was only a holy master, and he was a saint. The gap in strength between the two was like a chasm. Naturally, the speed of rushing, which is also much worse. If not for the fact that a supreme elder of the 9 Nether Demon sect was about to break through before and therefore return to the sect, he would not have needed to make such a trip in person. Thinking of this, Yang Qiu no longer hesitated and directly taking 1 step forward, his body turned into a stream of light, soared into the sky, and quickly flew towards the direction of Dawang City. 1 day later, Yang Qiu, tired of his travels, quickly arrived at Dawang City from Juyu Demon Sect. After entering Dawang City, Yang Qiu did not stop and immediately entered the Tianji Tower. Senior, something serious has happened. As soon as he entered the door, Yang Qiu shouted loudly. What's wrong? In the Tianji building. Li Yun was dressed in Xingyi and sitting on a futon. His facial features were clear and his hair was crystal clear, with a faint glimmer of light. He looked focused and held a white chess piece in his hand. He seemed to be thinking about what to do. Move. Well. Yang Qiu's face froze and he said softly, Senior, the outside world has changed. Things in the earthly immortal realm. Li Yun was still calm, and dropped a chess piece casually, as if it was nothing to do with him. Senior, do you know everything? Yang Qiu was startled. If not. Li Yun stopped what he was doing, looked over, and said with a smile on his lips, a few months ago, the Earth Immortal Realm had already started planning the Tianyuan realm, but you guys reacted too slowly. How many months ago? Yang Qiu's expression was not very good. In this way, the masterminds behind the previous destruction of the forces were undoubtedly from the earthly immortal realm. Now that the senior master of Tianji Tower has told him so directly, I am afraid that this news is no longer a secret. In fact, it is no longer a secret. This is indeed the case. Many figures from the great emperor already know it by heart at this moment, but those of them who are slightly lower in rank do not yet know the specific information. Seniors, those in the Earth Immortal Realm are extremely ambitious. If they come to the Tianyuan realm, they will probably cause endless evil, even worse than the original burying emperor, but no worse. Senior, you have a kind heart and have benefited the whole world. You will definitely not sit back and watch all the people in the Tianyuan world fall into dire straits. Yang Qiu said tentatively. When the buried emperor came to the Tianyuan world had little resistance at that time. Thanks to the help of the Tianji building master, the opponent was suppressed. Today, the Tianyuan world has encountered a catastrophe again. In Yang from Chiu's point of view, the senior master of Tianji House probably won't just sit idly by. You would be wrong. Li Yun chuckled, raised one hand, pointed at the table not far away, and said softly, before you came, two people came. Those two people came from the earthly immortal realm. Yang. Chiu's heart skipped a beat, and a bad premonition arose in his heart. He followed the direction of Li Yun's fingers and looked over, only to see two storage rings lying quietly on the table. With his strength, he could not see through what is in the ring. But come to think of it, the creatures from the earthly immortal realm who have come to the Tianyuan realm at this moment are not too weak, and the things they take out must be extremely precious. The moment he saw these two rings, Yang Qiu fell into the ice cellar. His hands and feet were cold, his face turned pale, and he felt a sense of powerlessness in his heart. Is it possible? Senior was bribed. The Tianyuan world has lost its biggest support, and there is no true immortal to take over. How can it have a chance of winning against the earthly immortal world next? Senior, does it mean that the Tianyuan world has no chance of winning? Yang Qiu's face was stiff and his heart was filled with despair, and he asked in a low voice. Who said that the Tianyuan world has no chance of winning? Li Yun's expression remained unchanged. He turned back to look at the chessboard, placed another piece, and said calmly, besides, who in the world can bribe me? This sentence is true. He has never intervened in the battles between the major forces. It is as difficult as trying to bribe him. Even if some people have this intention in their hearts, they dare not say it openly. Then after the two great emperors of the earthly immortal realm came to Tianji Tower, they never mentioned the bribery. They only said that they admired the reputation of the owner of Tianji Tower, so they sent some thoughts. Naturally, Li Yun had no reason to postpone such a good thing. Besides, he could clearly see what the other party was thinking. He just wanted him to give a bowl of water an equal amount and not take sides. He could still comply with this request. Is there any chance of winning? Yang Qiu's eyes lit up. He glanced at Li Yun and said in surprise, is it possible that Senior wants to help Tianyuan world? I won't take action. Li Yun shook his head. That, I dare to ask Senior, where is this chance of winning? Yang Qiu asked. As he spoke, he took out a quasi-emperor level elixir and placed it in front of Li Yun. With a look of anticipation on his face, he quietly waited for Li Yun's next words. Li Yun scanned the elixir. He glanced at it, and then looked outside the Tianji Tower. He estimated the time in his mind, accepted the elixir, and said. A slight chance of victory in the Tianyuan world has arrived. Originally, this little thing is not enough to know the news, but it won't take long for the news to be revealed to the world, and there is no need for him to continue to keep it secret. If he can make a little at the last moment, it is also a profit, right? After all, without Yang Qiu's arrival, some people would still jump out if they should. Coming. Yang Qiu had a trace of curiosity on his face and turned to look outside the Tianji Tower. In his eyes, there was no special person outside the building. There was only a young man, ordinary to the extreme, who was quietly waiting in the Tianji Tower. Outside. This young man does not have any powerful aura about him. On the contrary, he is extremely ordinary. He is the kind of person who would never be found if thrown into the crowd. This kind of person is obviously not in line with the winning rate mentioned by the senior Tianji poster. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Fantasy, me. Create a secret building at the beginning. Author, Mavericks Flying. Chapter 410. Senior, the winning rate you mentioned is not referring to a certain person, right? Yang Qiu asked softly. If not. Li Yun twisted the chess piece in his hand and responded calmly without raising his head. Is it possible? Yang Qiu looked at the outside world with a look of disbelief, then looked at Li Yun, and asked dryly, is it possible that he is the person outside the Tianji Tower? Ah! Li Yun chuckled lightly, dropped the chess piece in his hand onto the chessboard, glanced at the outside world, and asked casually, do you want to meet this person? Don't say that I didn't remind you that if you miss this opportunity, it will be difficult for you to meet this person in the future. Ah! Yang Qiu was startled. He glanced outside suspiciously, full of doubts in his heart. He really didn't see anything different about this man. He was too ordinary. In contrast to his impression of the appearance of a worldly master, the gap is very wide. In the past, there were also some powerful people who liked to hide their strength and walk in the world of cultivation as ordinary people. But such people are generally not so ordinary. After all, some temperaments cannot be hidden at all. I am a junior, but I follow the orders of my seniors. Yang Qiu cupped his hands and said. Such a person, who is respected by all the senior masters of Tianji building, must be somewhat capable. If he can't see his strength, then he must be too weak. In this regard, Yang Qiu is still, you can see it very clearly. Good. Li Yun waved his hand and said softly, come in. As soon as the words fell, you can see that the young man standing outside the Tianji Tower was obviously stunned for a moment. He looked around and confirmed that it was a voice that only he could hear. Then he straightened his clothes and said respectfully. He walked in respectfully. The first time he came in, he saluted quickly and said. The junior Qi Lin has met the senior. Li Yun nodded, pointed to Yang Qiu's side, and said. Sit down. Thank you, senior. Qi Lin cupped his hands and turned around. When he saw Yang Qiu, he narrowed his eyes slightly and then calmly leaned over and sat down. When Qi Lin looked at Yang Qiu also glanced at him. A glance at this person. This person was different from before, giving him a feeling of sluggishness. Although he looked extremely young, his whole person exuded a rotten atmosphere from his outer ears. It was as if this person was not a living being, but a living being. It was like a piece of rotten wood that had existed for who knows how many years. There was no life in his whole body. His sleeves were wide and loose, covering his body. There was a red scale between his eyebrows, as red as blood, flowing with inexplicable brilliance, showing that he was not a human race. Jilin felt Yang Qiu's eyes and turned his head slightly. The moment their eyes met, swish. In that moment, Yang Qiu suddenly felt like the world was spinning, as if he had come to a bloody world, with bright red everywhere. It's like the sunset appears, and it's like blood stains the sky. The smell of blood is floating in the air. There are floating corpses everywhere, and corpses are everywhere. It's like being in a desolate battlefield of gods. Everything has been wiped out and there is nothing can be preserved. Then the faint bell rang, as if it was a burial ceremony for the gods and Buddhas all over the sky. People couldn't help but fall into it and couldn't extricate themselves. In the bloody world, there was this terrible magic sound, if it was there, like there was an extremely vague sound, which made people panic, and then came the pain as if the soul was being torn apart. Just when Yang Qiu felt that he was about to lose his soul, a clear voice came, like the sound of nature, transporting him from another time and space. Pulled back all of a sudden. Do you want him to step down? Li Yun said. He is still the same as before, dressed in a green robe, holding the chess pieces in his hands, neither hurry nor slow, sometimes thinking, sometimes smiling, playing chess with himself. Call. After regaining his consciousness again, Yang Qiu felt as if he had walked through the gates of hell. His chest kept rising and falling, and he gasped for breath. However, within a short time, all his clothes were wet with sweat. There was even a pool of water stains under his feet. It is formed by low sweat. Terrible. Yang Qiu was still frightened and looked towards Qilin. Before he could turn his head, he froze, and then slowly moved his head back. On the surface, this person looked very ordinary, without any strength, but after what he had just experienced he already understood in his heart that this person was definitely someone he couldn't afford to offend. The other party didn't make a move at all, just a look almost made him disappear. If the senior Tianji building master hadn't been present, he would have been completely dead just now. He's just a young man, there's no harm in staying here. Qilin's face is still respectful, and there is no trace of the ruthlessness that can kill a creature with just one look, just like an ordinary person who is harmless to humans and animals. If the scene just now was not still fresh in his memory, even Yang Qiu himself, they can hardly believe that the creature in front of them, like a rotten tree, possesses such terrifying strength. However, the junior was rude just now, so I asked the senior to forgive me. Qilin said respectfully. At this time, the shock in his heart was no less than that of Yang Qiu. What he had learned all his life was an illusion. It can be said that the illusion just now, not to mention Yang Qiu, even if it was Meng Qingzi, there was no resistance at all. But it was so easily broken by the master of Tianji. Before the other party spoke, he was very calm, without any trace of true energy flowing, as if he followed his words, which was extremely incredible. This will not be the case next time. Li Yun slowly spit out 4 words. Just now, Yang Qiu committed suicide because he insisted on sizing up a being whose strength far surpassed his own. Logically speaking, it is not to blame for someone to casually press him to death. However, Yang Qiu doesn't matter. He was also the first big customer of Tianji Tower when it was first established, and played an indispensable role in bringing Tianji Tower to where it is today. Li Yun, both emotionally and rationally, could not just sit back and watch Yang Qiu fall. Therefore, he opened his mouth to save Yang Qiu's life. Thank you for your generosity, senior. Qilin slightly cupped his hands, his face was as pious as before. Just like a descendant of the next generation, he would place his status in the right place after meeting his ancestors. Just forget about these compliments. I hear them not only 10,000 times but 8,000 times a day. Li Yun waved his hand, turned his head, looked at Red Scale General, an interesting look flashed in his eyes, and said softly. You must have spent a lot of money to come to Tianji Tower today. After all, Tianhuang Eternal City has been dragged into Tianyuan realm by you, which has already overdrawn a lot of your life. After you separate a soul and rush here, your life may not be long. The Everlasting City is a big city. It was split from the Tianyuan realm back then. There are countless formations on it. It is indestructible and will coexist with the ages. If it were before, the red scales dragging the Everlasting City would not be the same. It takes too much effort. But in his twilight years, every move he makes can be said to speed up the passage of life. If things go wrong, it is possible that he will directly embark on the road to hell. Fantasy, me. Create a secret building at the beginning. Author, Mavericks Flying. Chapter 411. The Eternal City. Yang Qiu stood aside, watching his eyes, nose, and heart, motionless, as if he was in trance. But when he heard the words Eternal City, his heart still stirred up a storm. These words were familiar to him. Back then, his ancestor had provoked a large group of forces. If he remembered correctly, one of them belonged to the Everlasting City. Are these people from the Everlasting City? Yang Qiu lowered his eyebrows and secretly wrote down the name in his heart. Nothing can be hidden from the senior Tianji poster. Qilin said softly. No one knows his own condition better than himself. At this point, ordinary sealing methods have no effect. He has tried all means, but he can't delay the death of his life. Time passes. If there is no special means, his deadline will be 3 years later. There are only 3 roads before you now. Li Yun raised 3 fingers and said slowly, the first is to break through the current realm, the second is to reincarnate and rebuild, and the third is to find a way to extend his life. This. Qi Lin pursed his lips, with a hint of hesitation on his face. He also knows these 3 methods, but it is extremely difficult to break through the current realm. He has already reached the peak of true immortality, and is even closer to the difficulty level. Although he had enough background, what made him uncomfortable was that the resources in the everlasting city had been almost exhausted, and there was simply not enough for him to buy further opportunities. After all, just becoming an immortal would cost a huge price, let alone seeking immortality. As for the second one, this is the path he least wants to choose. Reincarnation and rebuilding are tantamount to taking risks. Not everyone can awaken the memory of the previous life. If things go wrong, you will fall into reincarnation and never come back. He is very fond of the third way, but unfortunately, he has already used almost all the available methods. It can be said that ordinary life-extending methods or life-extending pills have no effect on him. If you want to extend your life for a while, it will be difficult to break through to his current state. The senior feels that given the junior's current situation, which path is more suitable for the junior? Qi Lin asked softly. As he spoke, he took out a spiritual medicine and placed it in front of Li Yun. Before he came again, he had already understood the rules of Tianji Tower, and now he naturally knew what to do. Of course it's a breakthrough. Li Yun said with a smile, but not a smile. This method is the safest. Not only can his strength be greatly improved, but from now on, he will no longer have to worry about his longevity. It can be said that there is no more perfect method. However, in the hands of juniors, the red-scaled building is hard to look at. He really doesn't have enough resources in his hands. The Eternal City is not as good as the world. It is already stretched to support his true immortal with just one city. Coupled with the hundreds of thousands of creatures in the city, the resources are on the verge of exhaustion. Said without politeness. Once his lifespan ends, the first thing that the next city lord of Tianhuang Eternal City will do after he takes office is to make Tianhuang Eternal City appear in front of all the living beings in the Tianyuan realm. I dare to ask the seniors, can the juniors make a breakthrough first, and then pay back double what they owe after the breakthrough? Qi Lin said tentatively. As long as he can break through, anything else will not be a problem. He can actually accept it, let alone double repayment, even 10 times repayment. At this point, you still want to bargain? Li Yun said jokingly. He could see the other party's little thoughts at a glance. Why do you want to give him a double return? Do you want to buy more time for yourself? The younger generation didn't dare, but the younger generation really couldn't take out anything too valuable. Qi Lin said helplessly. This is just the most suitable way for you, but it is not the only way. Now I can also tell you the fourth way. Li Yun smiled and Feng Qingyun said calmly. The fourth way. Qi Lin's face changed, and he secretly thought to himself that he really came to the right place to come to Tianji Tower. Since the owner of Tianji Tower has said it, he will definitely not lie to him. Maybe this method can extend his life for a long time, as long as his longevity is no longer is the problem. He believes that he can collect huge resources in a short period of time to provide his own breakthrough. Senior, what exactly is this fourth way? Qi Lin asked eagerly. Li Yun smiled and said nothing, stretched out a hand and pointed at the sky. Qi Lin frowned and glanced at the sky, confused. If he remembered correctly, the sky above Tianyuan world seems to be filled with countless cracks. Some great emperors can guess the root of the matter. Naturally, he couldn't hide it from him. He even knew more. He had noticed it the first time the people from the earthly immortal realm secretly made a move, but the Tianyuan realm was not his hometown. At best, he himself was just an outsider. He has no feelings for the Tianyuan world. What will happen to the Tianyuan world has nothing to do with him. What if the earthly immortal world rules the Tianyuan world? As soon as he, the ultimate true immortal, stands up, he will still have his. There is only 1/3 of an acre of land, so he chose to sit back and watch, quietly waiting for the next development of the situation. Does the senior mean to let the junior help the Tianyuan world and resist the earthly immortal world? Qi Lin said suspiciously. This matter is not impossible. A great emperor Bai Li can allow the Zixuan realm to retain a large territory. He, the true immortal, takes action and unceremoniously blocks the creatures from the earthly immortal realm. Outside the boundary, it's effortless. But the key is, his life is short, and he can't even support a battle. Once he takes action, without others' full strength, he will fall sadly in less than a few breaths. On the surface, he is helping the Tianyuan world, but in fact it is almost like seeking death. Beside, there was no wave in the ancient well on Yangqiu. He was listening carefully to the conversation of his senior. Qi Lin asked for news. The reason why he ignored him was because he didn't take him to heart at all. In this way, he also guessed a lot of things. Especially heard Qi Lin's last words. His heart suddenly became hot. Senior Tianji building master, you don't intend to take action yourself, so you let an extremely terrifying existence come to help Tianyuan world? Really? He knew that the senior master of Tianji Tower was kind-hearted and would not sit back and watch all the people in Tianyuan realm fall into dire straits. He couldn't say what the specific strength of the city lord of the everlasting city in front of him was, but he had to be at least stronger than his ancestor, right? After all, the only commander of the everlasting city is the peak emperor. It is not an exaggeration to say that he, the city leader, is a true immortal. But Li Yun's next words directly broke all his illusions. No. Li Yun uttered 2 words and slowly shook his head.